Good evening and welcome to our Council and Committee of the Whole meeting for February 7th. Bienvenue à notre réunion de conseil pour le 7 février. As we meet today, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the importance of the land on which we are gathered. The municipality West Nipissing respectfully acknowledges that we are located on the homelands of the Anishinaabe peoples, on the traditional territory of the Nipissing, Temagami, and Dokis First Nations, covered by the Robinson-Huron Treaty. We honor and recognize their historical connection to the land and value their significant contributions in shaping and strengthening our communities. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility towards reconciliation and improving our understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their culture. Before we begin, I'll take any declarations of pecuniary interest. Hearing none. Item 2.1, we have no addendum. 2.2, before we adopt the agenda, just like to make you aware that item 9.4 has been removed from the agenda, just pending some further research on the item. Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Conseiller Gagné, seconded by Conseiller Pellerin. Be it resolved that the agenda for the meeting of council held on February the 7th, 2023 be approved as presented.
Okay, any questions or comments on that? Okay, all in favor? Carried, thank you. First up today, for item 3.1, we have a delegation from Crime Stoppers Awareness Program, and here to fill us in on the information about their programs and services. We have Michelle, Jerry, and Jean Lemieux. Bienvenue, welcome.
Thank you very much. We have the PowerPoint, if you have it.
I was not made aware there was a PowerPoint. Hold on one second. Understand.
Oh, right.
I'll just quickly load it. My apologies.
No problem. I just want to take this opportunity this time just to thank the council here for allowing us to do a presentation. We are a group that is involved in your community here, and I'll explain a little bit what we do and where we are. And I'd like to introduce Michelle, who's one of our newest board member for Nano Crime Stoppers. And Michelle does reside in West Nipissing in your area, so she's the representative for your area on the board of Director of Crime Stoppers. My name is Jean Lemieux. I'm the police coordinator for Crime Stoppers, and now you're probably saying, what, you're going to tell us that Crime Stoppers is not the police, but you're a police coordinator. I'll explain to you how it works. This is basically what Crime Stoppers is about. In a nutshell, Crime Stoppers, we are there to provide a way for members of the community to provide information on criminal activities to the police without talking to the police. It's been the case over all the years. A lot of people don't, for whatever reason, don't want to speak to the police directly. They're afraid that if they pass on information, automatically they'll have to go to court and testify in court. And they're afraid that they're going to be discovered, and the bad people that they basically provide the information on will find out who they are. So Crime Stoppers was created exactly for that purpose, is to provide a way, a means for anyone to provide information anonymously. And this is the main thing with Crime Stoppers. We pride ourselves that everything is anonymous. So anybody that provides information to Crime Stoppers will never know who they are. And even myself, I handle all the tips that come in. I don't know who the people are. Okay? So that's why the program is so successful. You don't have to put the PowerPoint on.
I'm just, I have it here. I just got to load it.
Yeah, but it's okay, because I know you're limited for time, so I can just go on and.
Oh, yeah, no,
We're good.
We're not that much of a hurry. We all like each other.
Okay, you too. Oh, here we go. Same slide that I have here. That's good. So as you can see at Crime Stoppers, this is our motto, if you want to say it here. So we are trademarking Crime Stoppers, if you want, so for the public to know that they can say it in all confidentiality to Crime Stoppers, whatever information they have. Can I have the next one, please? So Crime Stoppers, this is our mission statement. We are not the police, although we work hand in hand with the police. There's three components to Crime Stoppers. Is basically the police who will investigate the information that we pass on to them, the media who helps promoting the program, the Crime Stoppers program, and of course, the community, the citizens who do have information on criminal activities, and they can contact us and provide that information to us. Like I mentioned, we are not the police. You're probably saying, okay, you told us you're the police coordinator. So how it work is one of the component, like I said, is the police department. And both the OPP and in our case, because we cover the District of Nipissing and Parry Sound, the North Bay Police Service has hired me part-time to coordinate the program. So that's one of their contribution to the program is they pay my salary for 3 days a week to coordinate the program. The OPP also supply one officer for 2 days a week, the other days that I'm not there, to coordinate the program. So all across Canada, all across the province of Ontario, that's the big cooperation that we have with the police service is they supply members, they pay their salary to coordinate the program. So that's a very important point. And like I mentioned, the three folds for Crime Stoppers, the public, the media, and the police. And we need the three components in order for the program to work the way it is. If I can have the other one, just a quick history on the Crime Stoppers. The program started in Albuquerque, New Mexico in 1976. And there was, they had a armed robbery that turned bad. It turned into a murder at the gas station on a very busy road in Albuquerque. And the investigator, Greg McAleese, who's, funny thing, he's from Ontario originally. His dad was in the military. They got transferred to the state and he decided to stay there and became a police officer. But they were getting frustrated because they knew, like every police officer will tell you when there's a major crime, people know or have information, but for whatever reason, different reason, they don't want to contact the police. So what they did with the information that they had, and again, this is before the days of intelligent phones, cameras everywhere, that kind of stuff. They had nothing to show who committed the crime. So they decided to reenact the crime with the information they had. So that's where the media came in. So they reenacted the crime. And within, was it 17 hours, they had solved that case. And as a matter of fact, they solved other murders in the Albuquerque, New Mexico area. So that's basically the seed for Crime Stoppers. And one of the things that they did at the time is the police department offered a $500 reward. Again, that's in 1976, so it's a long time ago, to pay out for people to provide anonymous information. They set up a telephone line, which was totally anonymous. And that's what started Crime Stoppers. Right now, Crime Stoppers, we are in 22 countries around the world, 88 programs in Canada, and 37 of those programs are here in the province of Ontario. So basically, wherever you go in Canada, if you pick up the phone and call the 1-800 number, it will ring at the Crime Stoppers office, the nearest Crime Stoppers office. So there is not one spot in the province of Ontario that is not covered by a Crime Stoppers program. Okay? So, and we all use the same number across Canada, so that's the beauty of it. So it's very simple that we, with the police department, with our friends in the media and all that, everybody realized that for every crime that is committed, someone knows something about it, except, well, aside from the person that committed the crime.
People that
But
should know.
People know stuff, people hear stuff. And what Crime Stoppers does is gives them the opportunity to provide that information anonymously to us. Can I have the next one, please? There are three, how it works, how Crime Stoppers works is basically, you will have a person that will call the 1-800 number, 1-800-222-KIPS. Like I said, that's the same number across Canada. Every Crime Stoppers program used that number. And with Bell Canada has decided, they go by area. So for let's say, for example, in North Bay, 471, 474, they know automatically if someone calls from that exchange, it will ring at near North Crime Stoppers in North Bay. So they did the same thing across Canada. So people will provide the information either on the phone or on our website. Right now, we started taking tips on our website about 6-7 years ago. And right now, as of last month, 80% of all our tips are submitted online. So that's the new technology. People are more, they like to use that better than to call in. I'm old school. I like to talk to people. I love the phone, but I have to get on with the times. That's what's happening right now. So the information is provided now. It is, I mentioned, totally anonymous. We pride ourselves with that. We don't have call display on our phones, so there is no way of knowing who called. If it's submitted online, people will say, well, you can always find out from which computer that tip was submitted. The way the system is, we all use the same platform. It's called P3. So when a person goes, let's say on our website, nearnorthcrimestoppers.com, submit a tip, there's a form that drops down, they fill in the form. Once they hit the send button, it goes to a server in Ottawa. It's encrypted, sent to a server in Texas, encrypted again, then it comes to my computer. So if I'm going to do a research to find out where it came from, the only thing I'm going to find out is a server in Texas. So there is no way for me to know where the person is, the person that provided the information. Once I receive the information, and of course the person will be given a tip number or a password so they can check on their tip at any given time. Or if they want to call back to find out what happened with the information, they can always call back, but they need that number that we provide. I look at the information, and this is a big part of my job, especially now with 80% of the tips being submitted online. I have to sanitize the tips to ensure that there's absolutely nothing in the information that can identify potentially who the person is that provided the tip. So for example, we have tips, someone will write in, my neighbor is dealing drugs. Well, if I put the neighbor and they put an address, we'll know who provided the tip. So I have to remove that. So any information that could potentially identify the tipster will be removed. So it's sanitized. Then I send it to whoever the police of jurisdiction. So if it's in the case of a tip here in West Nipissing, it will go to the West Nipissing OPP detachment. They have set up, we have a system set up where the tips will go only to 2 individuals within the police service. And it's their responsibility to assign it to an investigator to investigate the crime. We also ask the police department, and we deal with all the police agencies in our area. We deal with the Ministry of Natural Resource and Forestry, so conservation officers. We do get a lot of tips, especially in the fall and in the spring, for poaching activities and so on. So they're on board. They will investigate. We ask the investigators to contact us once they've done the investigation and let us know what happened with the investigation. If it was successful, we do offer, this is another component of Crime Stoppers, we offer rewards up to $2,000. Now you're probably going to say this is not much, but this is the way the system is. And I can tell you the vast majority of people, over 75% of people that are reward eligible, that their tip led to an arrest, seizures of drugs, or recovery of stolen property, they don't want the reward. It's funny, but the vast majority of people don't want the reward. They know it's there, they know it's eligible for it, but they don't want it. So that's good for us, for the program, because it costs a lot of money.
We've actually had people where they've gone to go pick it up to get their money, and they've actually gone ahead and donated it back to
Yeah,
Crime Stoppers
that's right.
again, so that we can continue on with the work. So that's always nice to see as well.
Now, you probably have a question, say, okay, you say this is totally anonymous, and you say you pay people, how are you going to pay them? We have several areas, businesses that are public, that are busy, and we put the money in an envelope with, we have decided, like talking with the tipster, this is the name you're going to use, Mickey Mouse, go there at such and such a date and pick up, there's an envelope with $500 in it. That's how we do it. So the board members or myself, we never meet the tipster. So we use a third party to do that stuff. So that's how we pay the reward.
And those locations are only given out to the tips who are getting the money as well. So it's
Yeah.
not like it's advertised that they're part of our system. And that way, nobody can track them down through the people
Exactly.
that they're collecting the money.
That's true. And we have several outlets in our catchment area. The next one, please. So this is part of or I was taking from my old webpage. We have a new one now, brand new, but it's basically the same. How to submit a tip. You either call the 1-800 number or hit that submit a tip and the form will drop down. You click on it, you fill in as much information as you can and send it in. That's all what it's required. And we receive it and we deal with it. The next one, please. Just a little bit of a stats. This is just strictly our program, Near North Crime Stoppers. In Near North Crime Stoppers, we cover the district of Parry Sound and district of Nipissing. So all municipalities within those two districts, we cover that. So our neighbors, Sudbury, they cover the district of Sudbury and Manitoulin. South will be Simcoe, Dufferin, Muskoka. So they cover those areas. But we have, in our catchment area, is the entire district of Nipissing and Parry Sound. Those are the stats since inception of our program in 1988, in August 1988, and that's as of at the year end. So we have received over the 34 years, 21,739 tips. 1,772 arrests were made as a direct result of information that has been provided to Crime Stoppers and eventually given to the police. The board has approved $257,000 worth of reward and 216 were paid. These are the next two numbers are when you think about it in our small Near North area, $4.4 million worth of recovery and cash has been recovered in 34 years because of information submitted to Crime Stoppers, and $57.5 million worth of drugs has been seized just because of information provided to Crime Stoppers in 34 years. So those numbers are big. If we put that together with the rest of the programs in Ontario, the property recovered in the last 34 years, $341 million of property has been recovered and $1.9 billion worth of drugs in the province of Ontario that has been recovered because of the information provided to Crime Stoppers. Now, the next one, please. So we do have, the one thing with Crime Stoppers is it's run by a board of volunteers. So we have 16 now on board? Yeah. Yes, 16 representing each area. So we have a representative from Parry Sound, one from Birchswald, Michelle from West Nipissing, someone from Mattawa, the rest in North Bay, and so on. And it is registered as a charitable organization because we don't receive any funding from the government to operate the program. It costs on the average between $50,000 and $60,000 a year. So if you consider the computer equipment, the platform that we use for the tip, the P3, that's $2,500 US every year. We have to pay the license for that. Telephone lines, Bell is not cheap. So because we have the 1-800 line, so that's about $200 to $300 a month that we have to pay. We have a vehicle, so the van is owned by Crime Stoppers program, the Near North Crime Stoppers. So that's cost involved with that, the insurance and so on. So it does cost a lot of money to run the program. We do funding, the board is quite involved in fundraising activities in order to have enough money to support. We have Nevada outlets, the break open tickets. So in North Bay at the mall, the proceeds come to us. Here in West Nipissing, Gervais Restaurant, at their coffee shop, they have the Nevada tickets. The proceeds come to us. We have the same similar outlet in Parry Sound, so that's some of the stuff. We do have the annual golf tournament. This year will be in June, so that raised quite a bit of money for us, and it's good. And the board has decided to renew with our gala evening, which is now being planned for September. So that's a fundraising gala that will happen at the VD Club in North Bay. And of course, donations. I mentioned we don't receive any money from the government. I should explain a little bit on that. We do get money from the government to pay for the after-hours service. Because we offer 24 hours a day service. So we need someone, I'm not in the office 24 hours a day. So we need someone to answer the phone after 4 o'clock and to monitor the tips that come in online. So we all the programs in Ontario, we do have, fortunately for the last 10 years now, and we have to renew it this year. I'm on the provincial board as well, so I'm dealing with that. The province of Ontario is giving us $225,000 a year to provide the service for all the programs in Ontario for after hours. That's how much it costs. Okay, so the entire province of Ontario is covered. So anyone that calls Crime Stoppers at midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, the phone will be answered. Okay, so that's the contribution of the province. But aside from that, it's all fundraising activities by the excellent board members that we have. We do also promote the program. Can I have the next one, please? So there are ways of promoting the Crime Stoppers program. One of the best that we found, and we go out and we do presentation like this one to municipal councils all around our catchment area. One of the easiest way is to put a link to our website on the municipality's website. That's very easy to do, and it's promoting the service that is offered in the community. There are signs. The big one on dumping. There is one in West Nipissing, like that. That was the Ministry of Natural Resource and Forestry that came out with that. And we do have also those street signs like such. So a lot of municipalities in our catchment area, they put those signs up on buildings or on they're the size of a speeding sign.
I know that we have one in Cache Bay down by the boat dock and one at the community center here,
Right.
but I'm not familiar with where the other ones are at the moment.
So if you are interested, we have those. They're bilingual signs, okay? And we'll donate them to you free of charge, no problem. So if you want those, just let us know. We'll provide them. Just a little quick history on that with the signs. In Powassan area, they had a lot of problems with vandalism in one of the municipal park, and they didn't know what to do. So we went there. They contacted us with the police, the OPP, and we decided why don't you put up signs like that? And it stopped just by it serves two purposes. It's prevention, and it also helps Crime Stoppers to promoting the program. And we find that the more the name Crime Stoppers is out there, the more tips that we receive. And I don't mind that. I like receiving tips. That's what I'm paid for. We do participate. Can I have the next one, please? We participate in a lot of community events. So this is just some of them, the golf tournament and our jail-a-thon and so on. And on the next one, this was pre-COVID parade here in Sturgeon Falls. Every year we put our float and we put the Grinch in jail. And I think, Michelle, you were there last time and the time before. So for the board, we don't want to miss it. We really enjoy participating in that. And we participated this year in the Santa Parade in North Bay and Powassan and all that. But we particularly like the one here. It's so big. It's really a lot of fun. And if I can have the next one. This is some of the board members. We had, right to pre-COVID, we used to do an event in North Bay, the jail-a-thon. So we would arrest on phony charge mayors and councillors, business people. They would come to North Bay. We had the jail set up. They had to go to jail, and we had a mock trial with funny judges and stuff like that. And they had to raise their bail money, and raising the bail money was going to Crime Stoppers. So that was an excellent fundraising event that we had. Like I mentioned, we have 16 board members right now on the board, and each or every municipalities or area in our catchment area is represented. Can I have the next one, please? So again, this is our online. If you want to submit a tip, you just go nearnorthcrimestoppers.com and it's there. The form will appear. Just submit a tip. And the next one is basically thanking you for allowing us to do a quick presentation. And if you have any questions, en français, je peux répondre aux questions en français, il n'y a pas de problème. Je suis aussi confortable en français qu'en anglais.
Only him though.
Yeah. Okay. So if you do have any questions, please feel free.
Thank you, Jean and Michelle. That was a great presentation. It's great to see this kind of operation in our community because obviously it has a big impact on deterring crime and then also solving crimes. Do we have any council members have any questions for the delegation? Madame Tessier?
Oui, pour une fois que la type a été donnée à la police, combien de temps que ça prend avant qu'il actionne?
Ça dépend des enquêtes. Habituellement, les corps de police, comme si je l'envoie aujourd'hui, il y a quelqu'un qui va le recevoir, il va le regarder, puis ils vont le signer à quelqu'un pour enquêter. Ça peut prendre des mois, ça peut prendre des fois des journées. Un des problèmes qu'on a, and I'm going to say that one in English because it's important. One of the things with Crime Stoppers, we cannot brag about our success. We cannot, for example, say if there was a major drug bust in your community last week, we cannot say it's a tip from Crime Stoppers because obviously that will put the tipster in jeopardy. So that's one of the things. Mais pour revenir à ça, habituellement, on donne au corps policier 30 jours pour nous répondre.
Puis aussi, si l'officier il décide de ne pas procéder avec l'investigation, est-ce que ça retourne à vous pour dire qu'ils ne poursuivront pas
Ils
l'investigation?
vont nous laisser savoir qu'ils vont le garder, par exemple. Souvent, il n'y a pas assez d'informations pour faire une enquête, mais ils vont le garder dans le record comme information. Si on va dire à la personne, le corps de police le sait, ils ont l'information, mais présentement, ils ne peuvent pas rien faire avec.
Merci.
Les autres? Monsieur Cavarin?
Juste un commentaire. Je peux-tu avoir ta site? Je vais le laisser là pour demain.
Sure.
OK?
Where am I hanging it?
Burner. Je vais le laisser ici. OK? Puis, comme j'ai dit, if you want more, if you want to put some signs anywhere, just contact me. Actually, I'm going to leave should have some business card here. I'm going to leave my business card. It's okay if I keep it with you. And just phone number is there and my email at the office. Email me and we will supply the signs. We have, those are the bilingual ones and we have the ones strictly in English. So there is no problem with that.
And I'll bring them out. That's
Yeah.
my job for your community is to be here for you. So if you want us at any event or want us to be a part of anything, don't hesitate. We work with the food banks here. We worked with Metro and No Frills over the Christmas. So, I mean, we do a lot of other things other than just the crime. So we want to be a part of the community and making sure that people are out there seeing us, knowing that we're here to help them stay safe. So
If any members of council do identify areas in the wards that I think could benefit, the proper process would be to go through our CAO and that would be arranged through to be put up through our public works department. So, any other questions?
just keep in mind, we also work with the natural resources too. So if there's anything poaching, any of that area is a concern area as well, please let us know as well.
Mr. President?
Just to make sure, I asked for the sign, not because we have a problem with
It doesn't matter, and actually, it's even better if you do have a problem in an area. Put the signs there, we want people to call, we'll help your community.
I don't want people from Burner looking fake.
Oh, they're all over, so that's the way to do it.
So coordinate with John on how many signs you want, or if you want them at all and where you want them, and I'd be more than happy to drop them off to whoever needs them.
Again, we very much appreciate you taking the time to come see us today and share the information about your program with us. So thank you again, Jean and Michelle.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
And I hear we're all new to the council, is that correct? Or majority, yes?
Except for Mr. Rastool here.
Yes?
He's our
Old guy.
I was gonna say.
Seniors
Well,
are.
I just want to wish you luck.
He's on the All-Star team. Thank you very much again. Okay, moving on with the agenda, we'll move into committee of the whole. So for today's meeting, we've got a couple items under general government. To start with, we are going to, we had discussed and knew this was going to be coming through to us. So is the social media policy for the municipality. And with that, I would like to pass it to Mr. Barbeau for more information, please.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. I want to thank our communications team, Kim and Cash, for putting together a great draft policy. I don't know that there's much to add. There were a few drafts and iterations that came to council, and we had a look at it. So really, all I could say is that, you know, in this day of social media and the use of social media, I think it's important that we establish some general guidelines as to how, you know, how that should be used, and, you know, some tips and also some cautions with respect to having your own personal social media pages at council, but certainly as well, this isn't just directed at council, it's directed at staff. I have in recent years had to deal with staff members who have innocently wanted to comment and respond on social media. So I think that this policy shared with our staff and with everyone involved will be very helpful. If there are any questions specifically about the document, it's a fairly extensive document, so I won't go through it per se unless you want me to, Madam Mayor. I can quickly talk about it, but it really is an internal policy with respect to how we manage and conduct ourselves with social media.
Well, I think it's a fairly straightforward read. But there is some very, is there, I'm just going to open it up to the floor. Everybody's had an opportunity to read through the document. Are there any questions or concerns in reading through, or any points of clarification that you'd like made at this time? Madame Tessier?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had a question about removing comments.
Offensive?
Well, no, sometimes the person can be frustrated and not feel like they're heard. So, is there an opportunity to provide them with a reply to either edit their comment to make it more positive so it could be understood better, or also the opportunity to speak with their counselor to determine what is the issue that they're having with whatever comment they're having?
Are you just, may I clarify, are you talking in relation to the actual social media accounts managed by the municipality, or are you talking about in the management of your own social media presence as a counselor? Because it's a different response whether or not you're talking about the actions of our social media managers and
It would be
administrators,
through the administration.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would respond through you, Madam Mayor. I would respond that yes, typically we're not in a hurry to curtail free speech. This really, the instances, and I have been approached on gray matters. That sounds up here. No, never been approached on that. I've been approached on matters that were, you know, not obvious, where some staff would say, I think there may be a line. And but in general, it's extremely rare that we would remove someone's post unless it's targeted at a specific employee or derogatory towards a staff member. I'm not providing any member of the public, unless directed by council, with the leeway to be abusive to anybody. And so we're fairly careful about that. Our communications people are very professional and very articulate in responding to certain requests and certain expressions of frustrations, and they usually send them to, and I think it says, you know, how to deal with it if there are issues, and they usually direct them to the right area, and if they persist, then they are removed. But we don't take, you know, we understand that we're public servants and that everybody has a right to speak their mind, as long as it's done in a civil manner and not in an accusatory and derogatory manner that is offensive to anybody in this room or to staff. So that would be my response for that. Yes, if somebody's talking in River Valley about something very specific and very targeted, they'd probably be directed to contact me directly, contact you directly, and have it dealt with not in a public social media manner, but as an internal personal manner. But we're also well aware that social media is an avenue that allows people to become experts in municipal administration. And I welcome all of the feedback, and so does staff. We welcome the feedback that we receive with respect to suggestions or ideas. And hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much.
Other questions or comments? Councillor O'Shea?
Just, I guess, one quick question. So, section 5.8, establishing or decommissioning social media. I guess just a quick question. Does the current policy, let that, I guess, discretion to council to set up the social media pages, or is already staff that has the discretion to set up the social media channels? The reason why I'm asking is just, I guess, longer term, if let's say like there's new platforms that are coming out like every year, things are changing, so it's nice to have that flexibility to adapt. But I just foresee maybe some instances where, have you seen this on so-and-so's, the new channel? And if as council, we're not aware of the social media channels that exist, it may be difficult for us to kind of manage. So that section, I just,
No, I understand what you're saying. I guess my philosophy, and perhaps it could be articulated a little bit more, but my general philosophy is that if there's something that's affecting the public, council should be aware of it. And so if, I think it's they're corporate tools. And so the corporation sets up those tools to communicate, and council is the governing body of the corporation. But the staff set up that. But let's say the fire one is really not getting hit because all the information and people are going to ours, and it's just hard to manage or whatever. We could make a decision at some time in consultation with everybody involved there to say, listen, no, and put out a note that this has now been consolidated in another area. And if we do that, certainly it would be incumbent upon us to notify council that these channels don't exist. But it would not be our intention to be along the same line, governing public, governing the public at the council or at the staff level.
okay.
Does that satisfy you, or okay?
Questions? Just one thing that I wanted to point out that I thought was really useful in the policy is on page 29 in Appendix B. The Communications Department has actually provided a sample social media terms of use. So I know that there are some of us here who do have a social media page, who have community pages for our wards. And this would be a really useful piece to copy and paste on your own page that really outlines what the standards of behavior that are acceptable for your pages. And that way, if you do run into problems as far as people making inappropriate content, comments, or making inappropriate posts, you actually have that kind of policy there in the background on your page that outlines that. So I thought that was a really great of communications to include that, because when I first went through, that was one of my notes, is there a sample that we could use? And so it's already there. So for those of you who are active with your pages, it might be something worth copying and pasting just to reinforce the standards that we want to uphold as an organization. So so to move forward with this item, we just want general consensus that there's no changes that people are identifying, or any other comments on this that staff need to consider before bringing it back for approval. Okay, so in that case, this would appear on the next, would the
Yes.
general government have any time?
No, it will appear as a resolution at the next meeting of council.
Okay, beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that being said, we'll close that item off and we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. which is an update regarding the stipend honorarium policy. So we did discuss this last meeting or last meeting? I believe, was it last meeting? Meeting before, 2 meetings ago. And it was an item brought forward by Mr. Pellerin. And we kind of asked staff to provide a little bit more information for our consideration at that time. So I believe there's a more substantial staff report provided. And for that item, I will pass it to Mr. Barbeau.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think, again, thank you to Mr. Sharm, our clerk, for pulling some information together. I believe, and I was actually at that meeting, I believe that one of the discussions were to get a little bit more information as to where we are paying and what other people are doing. And I think that Mr. Sharm did an excellent job. And now Mr. Sharm is suggesting a variety of, or some options. Status quo would be one. Whether there's a variety of different rates that could be applied, attending virtually versus in person. Don't pay if you're attending virtually. Should mileage be paid separately from the honorarium? And so I think that might be opening up a bit more information. Right now, we're not discussing mileage. However, we could be including it with volunteers if they wanted to. My recommendation to council would that it could be onerous to try and track expense reports from a variety of volunteers from all of these boards. It hasn't been necessary in the past. I haven't heard that it's been necessary. I have heard, the difference, obviously at council between those who are in the outlying wards, 5 to 8 versus 1 to 4. Having to attend in person. That's never been dealt with. I'm not sure that we would deal with it in this volunteer package. But really, at this point, the past council authorized an honorarium for volunteers. It's whether council wishes to continue the honorarium, and if so, at what price. I leave that with you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much for the information. So on page 31, which is the second page of the report, Madame Ducharme has outlined some options for us to consider. And so as a council, we just need to decide whether we're okay with the policy as it stands, or if it's something that we would like to make changes or adjustments to. I would like to open the floor for comments at this time or questions. If anybody, Mr. Pellerin?
Yeah, I would like some changes.
Okay.
A few, let's say, this came up 4 years ago. Let's say I'm on the Committee of Adjustment, and I was on the Planning Board. And I was getting $75 for each meeting, which makes $150 for sometimes an hour and a quarter at the shortest, which makes no sense when you got people having trouble getting their taxes paid and having a problem making ends meet. For sure, this should be for one night, just one remuneration. The other part, mileage should be, there's a lot of communities that do mileage, and it's no different. It wouldn't be any harder than the $75, because you put your address to town hall once for 4 years. That's it. So there's quite a few that do have from zero. They don't pay anything, like North Bay, don't pay no remuneration to their volunteers. Marston Warren don't pay nothing. French River don't pay nothing. I think they pay the mileage. So I would be a lot more comfortable with, let's say, a fee of $30, $40 plus your mileage. Then it makes it a lot more fair for people from the outskirts. That's my,
Okay. Thank you for your input there. Did you have any?
No, and just in order to facilitate this, maybe one issue at a time. So if you take the existing policy as status quo, and then Councillor Pellerin is recommending amendments, the two amendments I've heard, and I don't take personally, if we disagree, that's fine. Two amendments I've heard is to provide mileage, and is council in favor of that? But I think Councillor Pellerin tied it into, I'd be open to that if the per diem was reduced. Is that fair enough?
with the mileage.
No, if the per diem or the honorarium, sorry. So the honorarium. So if the honorarium is reduced, you'd be open to adding mileage, right? Or do you want to add mileage? Let's say they add mileage, your colleagues add mileage, but they don't change the honorarium.
No, then we're,
Yeah, I'm helping you out here, that's why.
okay,
Okay.
no.
So they're kind of tied together, so I guess I would poll whether council agrees to make those amendments to our policy. Or if there's other amendments, but one at a time,
Yeah.
you can take and then park it and put it away or agree to it and then move on.
Okay, so let's deal with the issue of providing mileage first. Is there any other comments on that idea as far as including that in the policy? Yes, Mr. Gagne.
Working in the government sectors, the only danger of just paying the mileage is if people move, then you need to adjust if the residence changes during that 4 year. So I'd rather pay a lump sum if you travel, and we can decide if it's outside ward, excluding Ward 1 to 4, because people reside in West Nipissing, or might be residing in West Nipissing. But I wouldn't want to put the burden of making those calculations, because if there are changes, because there's still a lot of volunteers, so I'd rather put an amount. If you travel, we'll give you $25 for gas instead of calculating the mileage, and then we give you so much to attend meetings. So that would be my recommendation for us.
So if you lived in wards 5, 6, 7, or 8, let's just say with the current structure, you would get $75. And if you're in 1, 2, 3, or 4, you would get $50.
Something like that.
It's a little bit easier for staff to manage. Okay, that's great. Any other comments? Madame Tessier?
Yes, Madam Mayor. For volunteers, the mileage, I agree. I don't see that it's that complicated because they're leaving from their home and going to the location of the meeting. So if the meetings are always at the same location, then the distance is set already. And if there's any changes in distance, then the volunteer would be responsible to provide it to the administration, the same way as attendance, right? You need to know if they attended the meeting or not. So this way, if you know they attended, you have their mileage already, and then you can make the calculations.
Okay. Monsieur Rivard?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I guess when it comes to mileage or flat rate, I'm more in favor of that flat rate idea. And then I see as number one, there's if you attend virtually, it would be a different rate. I believe in that option a little bit, like maybe virtually it'd be $25, $50, but the flat rate of 75, I don't believe it's really strapping the municipality too much right now in terms of cash in our budget. So I don't really see that as too big of an issue. And looking at the other municipalities, some pay none, some pay more. 75 is kind of right in the middle. And I don't see too much of an issue with it, but I would propose like the amendment for maybe that virtual option, because I imagine there may be quite a bit of virtual people nowadays, so that I don't know if they would require the 75, but yeah, that's my take on it.
Okay. Any other comments, questions on the topic? Okay, so Oh,
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would be in agreement to look at, having the mileage because coming from, Ward 8, it is quite a ways to, from, let's say, living Monettville to Sturgeon and there, back again. Not judging anyone on the type of vehicle they drive, if it's a gas guzzler, depending if it's, even an electric vehicle or whatnot. Not one to judge on that, but I'm in agreement to kind of find like a sweet spot between the two. So let's say I've heard let's say like 75, let's say 50 if you're like wards 1 to 4, and then $25, let's say, for virtual attendance. So at least it's fair. It's fair across the board too. And, $25, let's say like from Monettville to here, you kind of break even with that. And I kind of resound, Councillor Pellerin's comments on that too, is that, it shouldn't be costing you, anything to participate on boards too, but you shouldn't be making any money out of it too. So, I think finding that kind of sweet spot is, I think, important. And we've seen it, with the new boards and committees. There's a lot of participation from, the rural areas of the municipality. So that's quite nice to see as well. So.
yeah, I do agree with you there. Like, I think we all wanted to have a focus on getting participation on our committees from people from all across the municipality. And because of the geographic size of the municipality, there is some inequality there as far as what it actually costs to participate. And so I can see the point there. Any other comments or questions on the topic? Okay. They were going to try to narrow this down a little bit.
Well, so I guess the question would be, because I thought I heard a couple of things out of Councillor Coshine. I guess the question would be, who's in favor of individual mileage versus a 75 outside, 50 inside, and then maybe 20 for virtual or 10 for virtual. That hasn't been discussed. And then find out if there's, we have the semblance of an amendment here.
Yeah, can we deal with the virtual next and deal with the mileage question first? So
Sure.
Basically I think there is consensus that we would like to see mileage or see people accommodated in that way. So I would like to see a show of hands who would prefer a $25 flat rate as part of the stipend for residents who are participating from wards 5, 6, 7, and 8. And I'll take a show of hands on that. Right, I've got one.
Sorry,
Yeah.
was that with mileage or no mileage?
No, that would be in lieu of mileage. So that instead of having staff having to do the calculations, if you lived in wards 5, 6, 7, and 8, it would be an extra $25 on whatever we land on for the committee remuneration. Sorry. Okay, so I'll take a show of hands on that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Flat rate, $25. Okay, so, and that is including putting the regular participation down to a $50 honorarium for participation. Now, there was discussion about virtual participation and whether that should be less than the $50 or whether it's the $50 to show up at the meeting, whether it's online or whether it's in person. Or whether it should be less if you're participating virtually. So I'll take comments on that portion of the policy at this time. Mr. Resto?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I through you, my thought is regardless of if you're in person or if you're online, I think we want to encourage and get back to, I think normal is a dangerous word, but get back to how things used to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think the time that volunteers commit to being on these committees, regardless of if you're sitting at a desk here or if you're at home, you're still the same time commitment and you're still sharing your knowledge and you're moving issues forward. So I probably lean towards just a flat 50 for everyone, regardless of how you're participating. It's still time that the volunteers are giving to the initiatives.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Resto. Other comments, questions? I'll go to Councillor Rivard and then.
Is this strictly in regards to the virtual aspect of it?
Yeah, like whether you think that virtual participation is of less value.
No,
Then
so I only
showing up in
wanted to
person.
comment on the base honorarium, so that'll be next.
Okay, yeah, okay, yeah. And Mr. Pellegrin?
Yes, Madam Mayor, just one more thing. In Schedule A, Melanie has put down, has included members of council too. But I don't think that's,
In Schedule A.
we're not talking about
No,
this.
they're not included in the calculation. Just the numbers, the members at large, sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, just the members at large in the top row. The one from council isn't in the calculation, it's just a note of that there is one person from council.
Oh, okay. I thought it was,
No,
okay.
Other questions or comments on that? Okay, so I'd like to see a show of hands on, trying to think how to phrase this. Who believes the honorarium should be the same whether or not participation is virtual or in person? It's all the same. Okay, 1, 2, 3. So we have consensus on that point. And then Mr. Rivard, you wanted to speak a little bit about the rate of compensation or the honorarium as a whole.
Yeah, so through you, Mayor, I guess it just kind of, with the comments, it kind of just went towards, it would be 50 flat rate. I don't really see why we would bring it down either for the people in 1 to 4 as well. I understand maybe you go 75 flat rate, then plus the 25 for the people 4 to 5 to 8. But the issue with 5 to 8 as well is I know Councillor St. Louis, Ward 2, some people are pretty close to Ward 5, 6. You got Ward 4, some people are right across the road from Ward 5. It kind of goes that way for everyone. So it becomes a little different there. Like I know we have that $25 stipend, but I also don't think that we should be lowering the rate for the people from 1 to 4 either.
Okay.
Just keeping it flat. And then the people from outlying areas would get that $25 increase for the mileage that we all agreed on there.
Okay, so what you're saying is you would prefer to keep it at a 75 flat, which is what people signed up for, and for people in wards 5 to 8 go with the
With what we had just
what we had
agreed on.
just agreed on. So so the next other questions or comments on that portion, Mr. St. Louis?
Through you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
I just want to reiterate, and I agree with Councillor Rivard. We have all these individuals that have already put their name forward and that have chosen to become volunteers on all our committees. And I'm not saying they're doing it for the money, by no means. However, they are joining these committee with the anticipation of this is what they were going to get. So for us to turn around now and say, by the way, this is not what you're going to get, I think that's not a good thing for us as a municipality or for us as a council to show that. So I agree 100% with what Mr. Rivard is saying. And I do agree that we should add the $25 on top of the 75. But I think we should leave it as what it is. And if it's something we want to revisit at the end of our term for the following term, I think that's where we should and need to address it at that point.
Thank you very much, Mr. St. Louis. Other questions or comments? Mr. Pellegrin?
Just 2 comments, just for Mr. Rivard. That's why it would have been a lot easier with the mileage. You just pass the line, you get that mileage. If you're at the other end of the ward, you know what I mean? And what was the other one? I forget what Mr. St. Louis said. I lost it.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments before? So that one, I will straw poll it on who would like to maintain the level of honorarium at $75 and then add. So keep it at, you guys are a lot of work tonight. So show of hands, who would like to maintain the $75, and then it would be an additional $25 for the people living in wards 5, 6, 7, and 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can I vote?
What's a straw poll? But
Yeah,
you
straw
would be
poll,
able-
yeah.
You would be able to vote in a resolution to change
Okay.
it, so yes, you have a comment.
Okay, so I tend to agree with Mr. St. Louis that we have done the recruitment of volunteers at this point. We have given them the terms of their volunteer work with us at $75. So I also feel that it's a little unfair at this point to actually change the terms of what we're doing. So, with that, yeah, Mr. Pellerin.
Get back to me.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just on, you mentioned the people who are expecting $75.
Yeah.
27 of the applicants, their forms were saying no remuneration. So they weren't expecting the $75 on their application.
What do you mean?
I don't understand.
When the volunteer, when they filled out the application,
Mhm.
it said right on the application, you'll be serving without remuneration. 27 of those forms said you're not getting nothing.
That would be a clerk question, and if we used old forms.
I'm wondering if it was an old form before that had been.
Some did say, but 27 of them said none. Just putting out there.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that, so I didn't see the details on that.
Well, we'll have to find the 27 and knock their pay then. Sorry. Bit of humor, sorry.
Okay. Do we have enough to go forward on this at this point?
Well, my understanding, Your Worship, is that the policy stays the same with an addition of accounting for travel for 5, 6, 7, and 8. And there was no differentiation between virtual and in person. So the only amendment then to our policy would be to add a $25 travel fee or an additional $25 for 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Mr. Boucher?
Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, just I guess a last quick question or comment. I know, so I guess mileage policy of the municipality seems to, I guess, mirror the CRA rate for mileage. That goes up, every year with cost of living. So I'm thinking, let's say, like, just as an idea, maybe the $25, let's say, per diem to use, let's say, like for gas, can that be indexed to cost of living? So at least it's done once in the policy, and I don't know if it's going to be cumbersome, for staff long term, but price of gas is still going up, and we're still going to be needing that, I guess, fuel for vehicles for quite a few years. So just thinking, if that
So
is,
you have a yearly increase built into the policy?
depending on cost of living, basically indexed on cost of living. So let's say if it's 6 or 7%, but let's say like 2-3%, well, at least, that's that $25 indexed.
I don't know what the complexity of that would be for,
Well, I'm looking at our Director of Corporate Services. You would make a calculation on a certain month as a parameter. It becomes, instead of a flat 25, it's like 2673 or something like that, So there'd be a kind of a weird number to transfer is all. I mean, perhaps Ms. Craddock has a different opinion, but we'd have to pick a template or a month, I suppose, to gauge that.
Yeah, I certainly understand what Councillor Christian is suggesting. I'm not sure that the rate moving with CPI is necessarily the correct inflator. Yeah, so if we took so council honorarium is based on November CPI of the year before. So that's what we say, if we're doing CPI, we would pick a month that it's going to be CPI of this month that impacts everything going forward. CPI might be more volatile than what travel costs actually are. But yeah.
I will say, I mean, everything in and of itself is not a big deal, Councillor Courchine. It does create some, some administrative calculation and then some disbursements to a variety of volunteers, and we have a few other volunteer committees that will be starting. I mean, it's certainly doable. I think maybe perhaps what would be fair would be maybe something in the policy to have a review, as Councillor St. Louis was indicating, towards the end of the year, and have a review once a term on state of the nation kind of thing,
Any other thoughts on the inflation calculations? Mr. Rivard?
Through you, Madam Mayor, just at that point, I believe if it would be based on rate of inflation and all that, we would have to look at the $75 also increasing every year, and it becomes a little daunting, I think, in one way for staff, and it'd be a little easier to just stick with the flat rate, which I'm pretty sure $25 will cover anywhere you're coming from West Nipissing. I drive to North Bay and back, costs me about $12-15 a day, so I believe $25 is pretty fair as of right now. But yeah, like you mentioned, maybe in the future we do take a look at it and bring this back to the table if cost of living, cost of gas skyrockets again as it did.
Councillor Resto?
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't think, this is just my opinion, we'll have a chance to vote on the policy when it comes through, but I don't think we were scratching to find volunteers in this latest round, and I think augmenting the the remuneration that they receive through one awards 4 or 5 to 8 with this additional 25, I think is fair. And again, we can really get into nuts and bolts of stuff. Someone coming from Verner as opposed to River Valley, as opposed to, so we're going to get into all those different things. We might, if we choose to, but I think the general discussion here was fair. We're increasing for those who have to travel, and we're keeping the rate the same for everybody who spends their time on the board. So I think, listening to Councillor St. Louis and, whether it be halfway through our term or towards the end to look at reviewing and see, might be a good approach. But my own thought is, assisting those who are coming from further with the increase of 25, and we're not dropping everything down to 50, I think is more than fair. I wasn't here. I don't know what the complaint situation was from volunteers and what they were receiving previously, but I think we're going further. And the other thing just to keep in mind, I know we're not talking about millions of dollars, but it's still public funds. So we're, taxpayers' dollars. So we want to be responsible, fair, but responsible at the same time as well.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Resto. Okay, so I think with that, okay, I'll put the inflation thing. Does any, show of hands, please. Who thinks we should try to work in some kind of accounting for inflation into the policy for the fuel compensation for wards 5, 6, 7, and 8? Show of hands. Okay, so I think at this point, we've got a fair consensus to direct staff to make adjustments to the policy to include a $25 flat travel compensation for committee members, volunteers from wards 5, 6, 7, and 8. That policy will return to the next agenda for approval. Sound good? Thank you. Just move on to the next item. Thanks. Okay. Okay, so next we're going to move on to continued discussions on the traffic and parking bylaw. So on the last meeting, council, we did discuss some items on the traffic and parking bylaw. They were very much operational, adding some stop signs, and during that discussion there were some other items came up. Additionally, a couple of weeks ago, I also got a request from one member to add to the agenda in regards to increasing the fines outlined in the parking bylaw to help manage winter overnight parking and the road maintenance troubles that causes. So there were some ideas that were brought forward by members during the last meeting. And I believe is there a report or is there just a? Just the schedules? Okay, I guess we'll open it up. We'll try to do the same where we'll deal with one item at a time. So the first thing that had come up through an agenda item request was an increase to the fine structure for the parking bylaw. Did you want, it came from Councillor Gagne. Did you want to speak to that at this point, Councillor Gagne?
No, not really. Actually, my request was more in regards to what do we do with cars parked on the side of the road when they're not allowed during the winter time.
Okay, as in whether or not we have the authority to tow, to remove, or whether our only options on that are for fines.
Yeah.
Okay, I would have to pass that to Mr. Barbeau for information on.
Thank you,
what
Your
the
Worship.
parking that bylaw allows.
Again, I wasn't blessed with the knowledge of being here at the last meeting, and so I wasn't aware of that. I might have to defer to our clerk. Obviously, what we're looking at here is an increase in the set fines for overnight parking on the street, which would hopefully act as a deterrent. I don't think our bylaw speaks to towing vehicles. Does it?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, we did bring an amendment at the last meeting.
we did. See, there you
Which
go.
our CIO was not here. We did bring an amendment to actually permit us to tow vehicles that are
There you go.
not there.
Perfect.
What she said. So, and then in this increase, it's just a suggested increase to the set fines for all of our parking. And I don't have any other comment to add for that.
So I'd just like to direct a question to Madam Clerk. And may I? Sure. Yeah, through you. So the recommendation is for the overnight parking to go to 100 and then everything else goes to 50?
That's correct.
So clear on that. So the recommendation that staff has put forward is that for the overnight parking, which actually causes us the most headaches and heartaches as far as the operation of our plows, that the fines would be increased from $25 to $100, and then the other fines would be increased from $25 to $50. Okay, any questions or comments on that, Mr. Pellegrini?
Yeah, yes, Madam Mayor. The last time, I think we mentioned, Mr. Goyen was mentioning the parking and like at the arenas and all this. Is this the same regarding streets and
Yeah.
all public?
Yeah, and we're gonna move on to that part later, so I'm just trying to deal with one piece of the bylaw changes that we want to do at a time. So right now, we're talking about the fine structures, changing the fine structures. Next, we'll move on to talk a little bit about the overnight parking in our municipally owned parking lots. There was also an item brought, like I have a list in my head, item brought forward by Mr. Restool as far as parking on Clark Street. So there were a couple of different items that were brought up at the last meeting, and I'm just trying to deal with them one kind of chunk at a time so that we can give staff clear direction on what changes we would like to see made in the bylaw overall.
Okay, so there's going to be like exemption later on, we're going to discuss?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor St. Louis?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to know, is there any mention or any increase in repeat offenders? So if somebody has no issues paying $100 parking on the street at night during snow removal and they park following night and the week after, do we have anything in our bylaw that says you know, you pay the fine the first time, the second time it'll be 400 or 500, so on and so forth.
Firstly, when you do set fines, it's usually approved by the courts. I believe that, and now that I'm aware of what transpired in my absence, I believe that when we told them the fine will be much higher and they won't want to do that too many more times. So if we may lay a ticket on somebody, and if they're there again, we'll have them towed.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments on fines? Councillor Crochet?
I would just have a question. So, item 31, parked vehicle adjacent or opposite to municipal recreation area. Is there a set definition for municipal recreation area? Just because I'm thinking, let's say like Club d'Âge d'Or in River Valley, it's not necessarily owned by the municipality, but it could be considered a, you know, a municipal recreation area to a certain degree. I'm just,
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's my understanding that that is meant to refer to parks,
parks, okay,
but we should make sure that the definition is cleaned up.
okay.
Sorry. Other questions or comments? Councillor Gagné?
Madam Mayor, through you, when were the fees last adjusted?
I'm gonna say I'm gonna say 2013.
Okay, so it's been a while.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. No more questions.
Well, just, Councillor Resto?
I have a question, through you, Madam Mayor. It's kind of funny in reading, I don't know how long these have been in place, but kind of funny and kind of a serious question. I know I've spoken with our clerk just on the side about this second part of it, but the first part here, number 38, with the person on roller skates going on a roadway. I don't know how often we have that taking place, but I know one issue that's been brought, to my attention. I'm sure others may have heard, but a lot of the, I don't know what they're called, unlicensed or uninsured carts that people drive in town and being on major roadways. I'm concerned for the drivers. I'm concerned for the people on these vehicles as well. And I guess my curiosity was just piqued when I see that we can charge someone or give them a fine if they're on roller skates, but on a,
How did I miss roller skate?
a cart, without any license or without any insurance, and how does that apply? And it might be a bigger question, something to come back to, but when I saw that, I thought that's interesting.
We haven't given many of those tickets.
Not since the 80s anyways.
I'm trying to find.
It's number 30.
Schedule I.
Number 42, or page 42, number 38. Passing on roller skates going up a roadway except while crossing. Sorry. Anyway, okay. Don't know where to go with that.
I think I think that it is an issue through you, Your Worship.
Sorry.
I think we probably need to get a little bit more advice from our local police as well, because I am aware that some of these vehicles, which are, mobility aids in a lot of cases, but where they are driving, I think we need a little bit more clarity. And I think it should come back with a little bit more info, because I know it's been an issue, Councillor Resto, but I don't think I don't have an answer for you.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I just wanted to raise it because, like I said, it's safety for everyone involved, right?
Right.
People riding this and people driving vehicles.
Yeah, do they belong on the sidewalk? Do they belong on the road? And what are the rules then?
Something, and I'll just finish. You mentioned that we're looking at this piece now. Maybe this is another piece we look at further down the road.
So we're on the fines. Other questions in regards to fines, Mr. Crochet?
Just, I guess, a quick question for curiosity. Is that enforced by the police or by the bylaw enforcement officers?
This would be enforced by our bylaw enforcement officer, our local.
I'm just seeing the list and there may be some very, relevantly depending on the demand, or let's say if a lot of people go, let's say on roller skates up a hill, let's say. But I'm trying to maybe find, let's say, like maybe look down the line to see if there's merit in adding another position, because it is a lot to manage, and that's just one bylaw. So that's just my opinion. So maybe to revisit that, you know, fairly soon. I know it's in the talks. So.
Yeah, through you, I
Yes,
think a lot
please.
of these, as was comically indicated, are not high revenue generators for us. So, you know, when we have people that are parking illegally, they're usually, you know, those that are parking overnight and impeding snow removal, or, you know, blocking access and those kind of things, or downtown excessive parking and that kind of thing. So we have been able to manage and what we do, and you know, you can't catch everybody making a violation. What it acts as is a deterrent. And so the bylaw enforcement officer will say, okay, this week I'm going to put a blitz on, you know, and letting some people know. I mean, obviously he or she would be enforcing violations, but they also come in with a certain area where they're looking.
Okay, sorry, I'm having a hard time with this one. So is everybody okay with raising the fines as recommended by staff throughout the bylaw at this point? And then we'll move on to the next item. It's been since 2013. It's probably time, because $25 doesn't go far anymore. Councillor Rivard.
Sorry, through you, just when mentioned the roller skates, I started reading all of them because I took a look at a lot, but I just noticed maybe the entire thing has to be looked at and see how relevant it is to West Nipissing. I see one subway or underpass. I don't even believe we have either of those. I don't know if we have one underpass. No, I don't think we do. So like just something like that should just be removed completely in my mind. And that's only one that I noticed. So
43.
yeah, no, I was thinking underpass. Maybe there's like a bridge where you can drive under, but no, there's not, right? So.
Okay, I'll pass that to Madam.
Through you, Madam Mayor, with your permission to go through, this bylaw has been in place through a variety of iterations for a long time. Well, if council would wish, we can go through it and you know, vet it for irrelevancy sections.
Might clear it up for the bylaw officer one day when he's looking through the fines and all that.
He's looking for the subway.
No, just less for him to read and go through.
Okay.
Are we keeping the roller skates? All I want to know.
And it happened.
Okay, so we have consensus on increasing the fines. Madam Clerk here and her crew will take a look through when they bring it back to us for final approval and clean up any of the irrelevant pieces and mark those for us. The next item that came up for discussion last time, which we'll go back to now, is we'll go to the parking in municipal facilities on municipal lots. There were some concerns raised in regards to overnight parking for events. Obviously, we don't want our residents to go to a dance or a party and have drinks and drive home because they're afraid of getting a ticket. So we were talking about different ways to address that within the policy.
Well, through you, my understanding of it would be a simple amendment to our special, our permitting when we're providing permits for our facilities. We would be indicating at that point, and that would be an exemption to the overnight parking. Now, does that need to be highlighted in the parking bylaw so that it's clear on the enforcement or not? You know, is up, but definitely, you know, our bylaw enforcement officer won't be enforcing once there's a permit for a wedding at one of our sites. Obviously, we do not want to encourage people to move their vehicles if they're consuming alcohol. So we would be ensuring that our bylaw enforcement people would not be enforcing that.
Okay. Mr. Rivard?
Through you, Madam Mayor, just one thing I'd like to clear up is we were talking about downtown parking overnight for the plows. But then if we're also finding people to park in our municipal parking lots downtown, then these people who live in those apartments have nowhere to put their car. So I don't know if we have to designate a few parking spaces in our municipal parking lots that they're allowed to park at or not, or else they're gonna have to start parking, say, in Giant Tiger's parking lot, then we're putting that burden on Giant Tiger as a business to take care of those overnight parking. I'm not sure how we would solve that, but just something to keep in mind.
I would say to that it is not the municipality's responsibility to provide parking for residents of rental properties. That's a responsibility of the landlord. And I would maybe let Mr. Barbeau speak to that, but that would be my first thought, is that then it's, that's not.
Well, through you, it's, you can't please everybody. It's not the purpose of our public parking lots to have them almost kind of squatters of cars that are there using them as their personal driveways. That's not the purpose. I understand it raises an inconvenience for them. I don't know necessarily that we have a solution per se. There may be other parking that we don't own where they can park in as well. If they want to park overnight at Giant Tiger or at the Metro, if they don't mind there and they have an arrangement, that's fine. But this isn't uncommon in a variety of areas. I mean, I have kids that live all over, but that's all right. In downtown Ottawa, and it's very understood that if they're going to have a car, they're going to have a problem. They're not going to be parking it on the street. They're going to have to go find paid parking somewhere. And that's one of the limitations to kids in downtown areas owning or adults owning vehicles when they're renters. Unless the parking is made available, it's a problem. I would suggest that I wouldn't necessarily create an exemption for that, because it would defeat the purpose of what we're trying to do. And we have to clear those lots in the middle of the night in a hurry for the commercial users of those parking spots. So it would be very problematic for our snow removal efforts or other efforts. And it takes up space. I mean, we have had the problem historically where there's just a lot of cars that have stayed there forever, and we've had complaints from our commercial regular commercial clients that would say, "Listen, my customers have nowhere to park." So we'd have to take it on a case by case basis, Councillor Rivard. But at this point, I wouldn't be recommending that at this time.
Councillor Nicol?
Through you, Madam Mayor, would it be an option to designate a bank of parking spots that we could rent out? Like the municipality says, oh, these 10, you put a bid in to get one of the spots, maybe that will reduce some of it, or is that?
Potentially.
Okay.
Through you, sorry, Madam Mayor. Potentially, we can look at that. Obviously, it's an uncomfortable thing because you want to find a solution for all of our residents. And so certainly we can have a look at that in a tiered kind of response. And I'll speak to staff with respect to whether that is doable.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to speak, out of hand, because usually when I do, I get corrected. But there might be, down the line here towards the Giant Tiger on one side, a bank of that we're not going to maintain, but you can park there. I don't know yet. We'll have to have a look at that. Yeah.
And would that be road parking, or would that be in our parking lots?
I definitely, to be blunt, I'm not in the public works business, but we really need to clear the snow off our roads. We really need to make sure that our roads are safe and that there's a different standard of care between the parking lots and our travel portion.
Councillor Riva.
I just add through you, just when I lived in Ottawa, I remember in those circumstances, they would, if snow really had to be removed, they would give us a notice usually, and then we'd move the car, and then they'd come and they'd remove the banks. It's logistical, and quite a bit of work, but it's just something that's kind of where I was getting at too, was kind of to rent out or designate certain spots, but I understand how difficult it would be. It's trying to figure out something for those people, because as you know, in West Nipissing, we're not like those big cities where you can use public transit. We don't have any. So you need a car to get around, and it's a little difficult, and we want people to, it's difficult to buy a home, so some people need to rent.
You know, one of the differences is where we park is also our only commercial area. And if you're looking at Centertown or some of the older apartments in Ottawa or even in Toronto, they are residential areas with not a lot of commercial. Here, what we have is our commercial over our residential, and it gets a little more tricky to give them. And I know what you mean. You can pay for that parking spot on the road, right on the street, and that's your spot, and it's a paid spot. But those are residential areas. This is a little bit more what happens in the morning with the commercial starting. It's just a harder thing to figure out.
And enforcement's difficult as well. If, you say this is your spot, but if someone else decides to go, what do you do?
Okay, we were talking about the recreation centers and recreation facilities, and that it would be written into the contracts. In my opinion, on that particular case, I actually think it is a good idea to have a line in the bylaw, because if you're looking at the bylaw enforcement officer who's using this as his map, then he knows, hey, look, for these parking lots, if there's a special event, there is an exemption written into the contract. And I think it just crosses both ways. And I don't think it hurts to have it in the parking bylaw would be my opinion. And then have it duplicated over on Mr. Poulin's side with his contracts on community services. Sorry, I'm just trying to draw it back because we kind of went off track on that. So any questions or comments on that portion of it on the recreational facilities and what we want to do there? Okay, is everybody in favor of taking that approach where there's exemptions written into? Yeah, okay. So then, because Fern had brought up the multi-residential thing, I don't know that we have a solution for that at this point. We would probably need to go back to Public Works and get some recommendations on whether there is a possibility to rent out. In my opinion, the roads are a little off limits as far as they really need. We know the amount of snow that we've had this year. And you look at the snowbanks and what our crews are trying to work through. But I don't know how to approach that one, sorry.
We will have a look based on Councillor Nichols' suggestion. We'll have a look at that and get back to you. I would point out though that, those discussions are no different than what's happening now. There's no provision in our bylaw right now to allow people to park on the street for overnight now, right? So those who have apartments without an assigned space seem to have found some sort of solution. So I'm not 100% sure how big an issue it is. So I don't know that, but we certainly will look into it and get back to council.
Okay, on that specific issue. The other thing that was brought up during the last conversation was the no parking zone on Clark Street, like specifically. And can I have you speak to that, Jamie? Because I think you're a little bit more aware of the specifics. There's a zone there close to the arena.
Yeah.
And so if you'd just like to explain that again, because Mr. Barbeau wasn't here and I'll probably use a reminder.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, I believe Mr. Remiard was here to share with his presentation. The issue that came up again from a constituent was we have no parking signs from the arena down all the way almost to John Street. And my question was, are we going to enforce that or are we going to remove the signs? Because the issue from the resident was, why do we have all these no parking signs if everybody just parks there anyways? So, and I think the signs are up permanent. It's not during certain hours or certain times of the night.
I would suggest without sending an advertisement to the public that we're not enforcing it because we're not able to. But hopefully that will be enforced. So I think the conversation at council will be, do you want to have, I believe that would have been a request by the residents of Clark Street at one time. I don't know whether it's problematic for the use of the arena that way to not allow people to park there, or would you prefer, like, do people want to park there? Obviously, if they're parking there in a no parking zone, they want to park there. And if they're doing that, I'm just thinking out loud for council, that means that they can't park elsewhere, or this is the most convenient to park, or it seems like we have a need for the parking along that road. I would just suggest you know, the same thing when, you know, I lived across from the Franco State School. You know, people, when there's parent-teacher nights, people were going to park on Main Street, you know, so you do live in front of a recreation center and that's going to be used. Now, is it inhibiting your enjoyment of your own personal property? You know, if the parking is on the west side of, then I suggest that's probably fine. On the east side, on our side, unless it's inhibiting traffic, I don't know. I'm just giving you a personal opinion what the issue would be. Mr. Pooling, do you have any?
I believe those no parking signs were brought forth to council in the past due to residents literally across the road from the arena requesting that because there was people were just parking all over down Queen Street as well, and it was becoming problematic to them. And council at that time agreed to put no parking signs that basically spanned from front all the way to John, essentially.
On both sides?
I don't believe on both sides. I only believe on the east side of Clark Street.
So the arena side.
Correct.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I just want to be clear, I'm just
Yeah.
bringing this
So
forward.
if the signs are there, we need to enforce it, and if we're not gonna enforce it, we need to take the signs away. When you were speaking to residents there in that area, are they still in favor of not having parking on that?
I think generally what it was if the signs are there, then we should be enforcing. And if we're not enforcing them, why are the signs there? Kind of question.
Well, I think the issue, to very bluntly, is we were enforcing them and we're not now because we don't have the ability to, but we're going to be rectifying that very shortly. So it's council's decision whether they want no parking there. And if they want no parking there, we're set up for it and we will enforce it. If we want to make an amendment to our parking bylaw, then we would remove the signs if you feel that, well, we should be allowing parking on the east side of that street, right?
And the last comment, I understand through, the convenience of it. I mean, there's all kinds of kids to seniors that participate in skating, hockey, and that kind of stuff in the arena. And we're probably talking about 10, 15 spaces close by. I don't know what the capacity is in the parking, if it is something where we do need that space, maybe that's the discussion to have as well.
We seldom see the parking at the back of the arena for the Clark Street entrance. Most locals will use that. When we run into high volume events such as our junior A team or tournaments, people from outside the community will generally park at the front of the building on O'Hara Street. It seldom happens that the back parking lot is full. I've never seen it. For example, yesterday we had to park, I played hockey personally, I had to park on the other side of the skate park, the outdoor roller base park, and it seldom happens. But what happens is along Clark Street, you have 10 or so prime parking areas, so you have to walk less to get into the door. So it's convenience, in my opinion. It's not that there's a lack of parking, it's just that you get to park much closer to the entrance.
Councilman Tessier?
Is there a safety issue as far as where there's no parking at the entrance of that?
Is there a section that would be no
Through you,
parking?
Madam Mayor, the last maybe 2 vehicles that are parked close to the entrance on Clark Street, sometimes we get a bit too close to the entrance and it does cause maybe some safety concerns, especially when parents are picking up kids. They tend to park right at the door as the kids are running out of the arena or running into the arena. I think we could look at the signage, but I would think that we would need to leave maybe a 10-meter buffer from the edge of the entrance to where we allow to start parking, if we do allow it, because right now there is no parking at all along that section of Clark Street.
Councillor Rivard?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I do find it odd that it is on the east side and not on the west side where the homes are, the no parking. The no parking should most likely be on the west side along the homes. And my entire life, I've been at the rink quite a few times. We always park on that east side, right? And it's always been, I'm not saying anything that it's never been enforced, perhaps it has, but that east side doesn't seem too much like an issue, except for what Mr. Poulin just mentioned about that. You do get close to the intersection sometimes, and people are like, oh, it's the last spot close to the doors. So they'll try and squeeze in there, but it's a little tight, maybe having that 10-meter buffer zone on each side of the entrance. But the fact to not allow people to park on the east side, I find is a little irrelevant.
Okay, thank you very much. Other questions or comments on that? Okay, so I'd just like to get some idea from council. Just raise your hand if you would like to see us make changes to the parking on Clark Street to allow parking in the area that we've been discussing. If you would like it changed, please put your hand up. 1, 2, you would like it changed. Okay, yes, okay. So to allow parking.
Yeah, and I think
With
to
the-
Councilor
with-
Rebut's comment, if we are shifting.
We'll discuss what to do.
Can I?
Sorry,
No, if I can just jump in, would you also entertain then moving the no parking to accommodate or to please the people who live on Clark on the west side? And ensure that there no one's parking on?
Yeah, that's what I had.
Okay.
So we'll leave it at no parking, we'll just flip it to the east side of Clark Street, which I think makes.
To the west side.
To the west side, sorry.
Keep, like you indicate, for safety reasons and sightline reasons, keep no parking with a limit.
May I just say something here? I would be remiss, I would be uncomfortable making changes to the bylaw that affect the people who live there without consulting with them. It could be that the people who live on Clark Street, like the fact that people can park in front of their house when they come to visit. Like, so if all of a sudden we make all of those homes no parking and we haven't consulted with any of those residents as to whether that suits their needs, I think that would be a bit of a mistake. So, I don't know how we would do that, whether it's communication with them that we're considering making a change to the bylaw. But we don't know how people use that and whether it will impact them. Obviously, they're not doing it in the wintertime because that would get them a $100 fine now. But in the summer, if that's going to impact them, then I would want to hear from those residents first, so.
So the decision though to remove parking on, no parking on the east side
Yeah.
stays, but to move it over to the west side is subject to consultation
With
with
those
the residents.
property owners.
Okay.
Does that sound fair to everybody? Okay, wonderful. Are there any other issues identified within the parking bylaw that we would like to talk about now? Now, please understand, we are going to see this parking bylaw a lot in the next 4 years. Every time we need a new stop sign, every time those kinds of things happen. So if there are other items that we do identify in the future that we want to deal with, it's not our last opportunity. But Councillor Crochet?
I just think like maybe for the sake of clarity, item 37, parked vehicles, it's highlighted in blue and there's a big red arrow.
Yep.
Unauthorized month, can we be more specific? Let's say like it's November 1st, let's say, the other date in the next year. So at least very, clear from the onset, that like having unauthorized month, you could have that gray area where if it's not, clear, it may bring to additional confusion. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You're saying, so specify that from November 1st to.
Because I think like there's a bylaw, I was looking at it over on the website, I couldn't find it, but I think there is like a bylaw right now, there's no parking on the side of the road between, I think it's November 1st, I want to say April 1st, but that may be even May 1st or something like that. There's already that provision, so I just, let's say like, would see
In the
like a
bylaws,
clarity.
in the bylaw.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Councillor Boucher. Councillor Rivard.
This is it on that, but just that, thank you to you, just that on to what Jerome said. Maybe we could look into having some signage that mentions that as well, then everyone in the area, right, like the no parking sign, will often say no parking overnight from November 1st to April 1st. Right, then it's a little clearer, people don't have to go fishing through the bylaw to see if they're allowed to park there overnight or not, depending on the time of year.
That would require new signage all around. wouldn't it?
Yeah,
that's-
we can have a look at exploring that. But I think that might be a tiered thing where we can look into it because there's, that would require a lot of,
Yeah.
I'd have to look into it.
Okay, and Councillor Daniel?
Yeah.
Kindly.
To Madam Clerk, thank you, Madam Mayor. In regards to Councillor Coshine, the specific is in regards to parking on highway. From which month to which month can't we park on the highway? From 12 to 7 in the morning? And if you don't know, it's not a trick
I
question.
don't
If you
know.
don't know, I think that's what, if we can put the specifics at item 37, we would know. Like, we know in town, you can't park from November 1st to April 1st on the side of the road.
So-
But this item right here is particular people parking on the highway, which I know would be like Ottawa Street and Toronto Street.
No. Highway under the, is any street. It's just, that's what it's called.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah,
it's any
when
street,
when you
okay.
call a
Including
travel, yeah,
residential, okay.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other items under the parking bylaw that we'd like to tackle this evening? I'll just check with Madam Clerk.
I have it all.
Okay, so we'll, do you need more than 2 weeks on this? Would you have this for next meeting or would
I
it
think
be?
it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, so again, with this, as with the others, we'll come back at our next meeting as a resolution with the general changes that we've agreed upon here. And at this point, I would entertain a motion for a 10-minute recess. Councillor Nicol, Councillor Rivard.
It is moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Rivard at approximately 8:17 PM. A motion is tabled for a 10-minute recess.
All in favor? Thank you. Welcome back. Thank you very much. We're on Committee of the Whole, 4.2. And this is under Emergency Measures and Public Safety Committee.
Just the budget.
What's it?
It was just the budget when I had it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Again, back to 4.1D. We have budget process and proposed meeting dates. And for information on that, I'll pass it to Mr. Barbeau.
Thank you, Your Worship. I shouldn't have reminded you because I'm not ready either. I'm just trying to find is that where it is here? Okay, good. Well, so a bit of an update of where we are with the budget. The Director of Corporate Services and I have been working with staff receiving budget submissions. We've received those budget submissions. We've compiled those submissions. We're still working at refining some of them. I shared with Her Worship an initial starting point as a draft, and she survived it. So apparently I need to tweak it a little bit more. But so where we're at right now is we're going to be refining the budget submissions. At that point, then I expect that the department heads that work with the respective chairs will be contacting the respective chairs to go over the submissions of the individual departments. And then we will be providing you with hopefully a week's notice, Ms. Craddock, the documentation for the draft documentation that we'll be working from. And so what we're looking at here is some potential dates for council. So we would be ready by the 22nd of February, 23rd of February, March 1st, March 2nd, March 8th, March 9th. And I believe those would be the only dates that I believe will be necessary, especially if we're looking at it from a policy document. And so what we'll be looking at is compiling that. I would love to have everybody in attendance. And so if we can, we'll look at that and look at everybody's submissions. Then we will be getting back to council as a whole in a group email to indicate, what those dates are finally. So I don't really have much more to indicate. I think the opening budget discussions, I don't think I want to speak to them right now. There are a lot of interesting changes and interesting requests. And, with the environment that has transpired in the last few years, there was additional funds that are no longer here and that kind of thing. So every year, the budget deliberations seem like it's an insurmountable task, yet we come to an end result that's satisfactory to the council and to our residents. So I see no difference. So it's just a bit of an update to let you know we are thinking about it. We are a little bit later this year with the transition of council. There's a lot more involved in setting up meetings with this present council, and it's delayed us a little bit with other things, but we should get to an acceptable budget by early March.
Thank you very much. I'll just open with a couple of questions. Do you expect us, so the 6 dates that you have here, do you expect it to take 6 meetings in order for, is that your kind of general expectation at this point for us to get from start to finish?
It really is it's a guess. It certainly, it really depends. But no, it depends on how deep you need to dig and where you want to go with it. Certainly, the budget document is your key policy statement, and it basically gives the marching orders for this organization to move. And so it isn't something we just want to just glaze over. It's something we want to pay a lot of attention to. And that being said, you've received a lot of training with respect to roles and responsibilities and operations and what's in the weeds versus what's policy and strategic. And so hopefully we can find a nice mix to that. But I'm hopeful that with what I see here, we'll be able to reach a final budget by March 8th.
operationally for staff, when do you start getting worried about how late it's getting in the year?
This year, not really. I mean, you're not, I think that throughout this year, you're going to be making a lot of changes that are going to affect future budget years. There's going to be some tweaking, and obviously you approve this budget, but this budget is probably, based on a little bit more status quo. You're not selling buildings, you're not, entertaining a lot of different things. So I'm not really worried. In my world, budgets, I would love a budget to be approved by about now, mid-February to end of February. I had heard comments that in other agencies that it'd be wonderful to do budget deliberations prior to the start of the next year. That, I think the council and this organization would need to evolve a little bit more with respect to what information they require. The other problem that we have with that is that our agencies and boards have not provided us with their submissions yet. Some of them have, some of them haven't. So typically we only get, some of our board submissions like DSAB and OSHATO and the health unit around this time, if I'm not mistaken, Miss Craddock. About now?
Yeah, so because all the agencies were the same as we were with brand new board members, they weren't as prompt. Usually DSAP and the health unit are a little bit faster out of the gates. Chateau was a little bit after us usually, but this year everybody's a little bit behind with holding boards.
Yeah.
Okay.
We do have some policies that are in place that allow us to start a little bit earlier in terms of tendering. Obviously, we have revenue policies that allow us to provide for interim billing. And so it isn't as much of a concern. Where it becomes a concern for us is in getting good competitive bids and ensuring that budget levels are approved early enough so that we don't lose suppliers who have taken on contracts elsewhere. And so the earlier that you get to it, the quicker we can get our documentation out and so that we can be competitive.
Thank you very much for that information. Questions and comments from members of council, please? Yes, Councillor St. Louis.
Just through you, Madam Mayor, what is the time frame? So we have the dates, but from what time to what time?
Oh, 6 to 9?
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's a council decision. It could be 7 to 10. I don't like that. It could be whatever you want, but historically it's been 6 to 9. And I will say historically for the subsequent budget meetings, that we had an informal policy that if 6 of 9 were in attendance, we would run it, not just a simple majority. I am a little bit, just my personal opinion, I'm a little bit careful with that in the sense that I really want all of council to participate as much as we can. So I'd like to accommodate all of council as much as we can. And so I'll be looking at the submissions and then finding one where 9 say yes.
For ease of use, would it make any difference to council if for budget we went to a hybrid format? So, I don't know if there are some members who have more difficulty with that kind of number of meetings and that interval of meetings day after day. So if it is easier, I would take advice from council as to whether we want to open that up as allowing for more easy hybrid participation in that process to make sure that everybody is available. I mean, we do have members who have families at home. We have members who have different work schedules or other things like that. So, I'm just looking at you all as to whether you think that would be appropriate to just kind of make those allowances to ensure maximum participation. Councillor Crochet?
I would be in agreement because I'm looking at the Thursdays, depending on the day, I may get out of work at 6 or after 6. So having the meeting start at 6 on the Thursdays might be a little trickier for me, but if, let's say, we're participating through Zoom or whatnot, or that hybrid, it's easier for me to participate in those, on those days, let's say.
Okay, so with council's agreement, I would think it would be a good idea that when we do finalize those meetings, we will make it available by your choice to participate either here in council chambers in person or have the option to participate from a location of your choice. Everybody okay with that? Okay. Any other questions or comments in regards to the upcoming scheduling of budget? Yes, Councillor Nicol?
Are the Wednesdays and Thursdays set in stone, or could we look at alternative dates? Just out of curiosity.
What day, Mondays or?
I just have
Friday?
school Thursdays, but I can miss it. It's fine.
Oh, okay, no, but that's good to know.
To learn Francais for you all. But that's okay.
I suppose that what we'll have a look at is if there are if this isn't working, we'll figure out something else as well.
Okay.
We can get at other times. You know, I believe that planning has a meeting for the 14th.
14th of March.
Yeah, but you know, there could be, yeah, we'll have a look at that.
Okay. If it doesn't work, it's okay.
Sure.
If there are members here who have specific days or times that are problematic for them, you can send me an email in the next day or two. I prefer it tonight or tomorrow, just so we can start working on those scheduling pieces. You know, we can try to make accommodations so that, like I say, to maximize participation. Because that really is the goal, I think, for all of us, is I think we all want, this is our first budget as a council, and for many of us, 8 of 9 of us individually, this is our first budget ever. So, you know, we do want to make sure that that everybody is here. So, you know, Councillor Nicol, and anybody else who might have some minor issues, like if it's a change from 6 to 6:30. You know, we can definitely look at making those shifts. So just if you have anything that you'd like to share with me, please do so by tomorrow end of day, and I will work with the staff to develop a schedule that works for most of us. And I would just like to pass it to Madame Ducharme, who has something to add to the process.
I just wanted to I believe that Mrs. Dupuy, our deputy clerk, had sent everybody out an email with those dates and asking for availability. So whether you respond to Mrs. Dupuy or you respond to the mayor who will relay it, it doesn't matter, just as long as we find out.
Any other questions or comments before I close this item out? Okay, thank you very much. And okay, so now we do move on to 4.2, emergency measures in public safety. And it's a request for a bylaw adjustment to around snowmobile noise. And for that, I'll pass it to Councillor St. Louis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We received a letter from a resident asking to adjust or to propose a bylaw. And I will read the bylaw or the proposed bylaw to you. It's in regards to the noise level of snowmobiles. So over the last few years that I recall, there is a presence of loud, high-pitched exhaust noise emanating from snow machines running their engine with non-stock exhaust system, commonly known as cans. Excuse me. I reside on Champagne Road, and during certain times during the winter, snow machine operators purposely rev their engine, causing a very loud exhaust noise at all hours of the day and night for no apparent reason. There is no sanctioned racing events being taken place, and there is no reason known to me why you would purposely annoy the residents of this community. The exhaust systems are illegal under the Motorized Snowmobile Vehicle Act, Section 18.2. At times, the offense is enforced when snow vehicles are operated on highway, trails, or crown lands. Unfortunately, no enforcement or education can be conducted when snow vehicles are operated on private land. In Southern Ontario, you seldom see the exhaust system offense as property owners will terminate trail permission. The majority of operators are responsible as there's limited access to trails on private property. Excuse me. I propose a discussion amongst councillors of West Nipissing to put forth a bylaw that hold property owners responsible for allowing operations of snow vehicles with non-stock exhaust system, especially when a complaint comes forward due to the excessive noise from snow vehicles and the residents are subject of this annoyance. For example, no property owner of the municipality of West Nipissing permit or allowed the operation of motorized snow vehicle on their property with non-stock exhaust system. The property owner is solely responsible for any operation of motorized snow vehicles on their property with non-stock exhaust system, and when operated causes excessive noise to the residents of the municipality. I will open it up to anybody to have any questions. Councillor Tissy?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We do have a noise bylaw, and there is a section about that does not include motorized snow vehicles, but instead of creating a new bylaw, maybe it could be incorporated and amended the noise bylaw.
You know, Mr. Rain makes, no property owner should allow the operation of a motorized snow vehicle on the property with non-stock exhaust systems. That in and of itself would be a separate bylaw. If one perhaps, and I'm not sure, that I'm just thinking out loud, one way of doing it is through what Councillor Tessier has indicated, is that we add a line that allows, if we get a complaint for an excessive noise with snowmobile with non-stock, and we put it in there, then it will give us the enforceability to go and fine them for the noise part of it. It really would be, I believe the complaint would be predicated on the fact that it's noisy, right? Whether it's stock or non-stock, I don't know. I'm far past having those kind of toys. But if it's an issue with noise, we certainly could add a line into our noise bylaw indicating that is not permitted and that it would be a fine. So there's two options. If you want a new bylaw saying we're not allowing it, I don't know how the operation of it. I think it is a noise thing. I think we're safer to regulate noise than we are to actually say you can't operate a machine or not.
On private property.
Yeah. We can't regulate noise on private property, though. We do, so. That's whether council wants to entertain that and just add that as a line, and then I think we could probably satisfy that request.
Councillor Patrick?
Yes, Mr. Saint-Louis, how would you gauge that? The amount of noise of a snow machine. First of all, would it be the bylaw officer that would?
Yes.
You can put it in there, but how the hell do you enforce it?
Our bylaw officer does enforce noise through this and provides orders and directions through a variety of the stipulations in there. So there is they do have the ability. Now, from a practical perspective, you do raise a point where if you're going to call somebody on, and maybe I'm going to contradict myself here, but if say Mr. Rame on Champagne Road calls in a complaint, we'd have to be able to get there at the time and kind of catch them. We have to catch the noise happening. And so if the noise has subsided or stopped, then we don't have any authority to enforce it.
So, so my question to this would be, we have numerous property owners that are considerate enough to let these snowmobile trails go through their land. So by enforcing these, so I'm assuming then it'll be up to our bylaw officer to get the individual themselves that have these cans on their machines. But what I'm getting at is, so the example that Mr. Rames provides, no property owner of the municipality of West Nipissing will permit or allow an operation of a motorized snow vehicle on the property with non-stock exhaust system. So if I own land and I let the snowmobile trail go through my land, if people are using the trails and those individuals have how am I, so I'm going to take away from the rest of the citizens that are using the trail,
So my
right?
understanding of snowmobile, the trails that are managed by the Ontario Federation of Snowmobiles, that's a different, because they have negotiated and have rights of way that are negotiated. So they become the trail, and that supersedes the private. So the police can enforce on the trail. They can't enforce off the trail. So if you have a trail, I remember in Rayside, Balfour, where I used to work, we used to have to negotiate through the backs of farmers' fields and that kind of thing, because they didn't have public access. But then it becomes, a right of way and a license to use so the police have jurisdiction over that part of it. They wouldn't have jurisdiction over those rights of way that aren't. I don't know, Melanie.
I wouldn't want to see the burden put on property owners for the actions of others taking on their land, which then could deter people from offering their land for the trails, because we know that the trails are a great form of recreation, especially in our community. So I'd be worried about the way this example is written, and would want to make sure of that we aren't putting the legal burden on property owners who have been generous to put forward their land for public use in the wintertime. And I think that's where you're going.
My recommendation is the safest way is just add it as a noise issue, and that we can control. It's still hard to enforce, but, it's like anything, dogs at large, hard to enforce. A lot of things you have to be there. So it really is, but at least there is something.
Any other questions? Back to you.
Well, you'll just want to take a bit of a,
So
would council be?
So can we get a show of hands of who would be in favor of imposing a noise, or in addition to the noise bylaw, for the use of cans on private property?
So with the other items, staff will make those changes to the bylaw and bring it back to the regular portion of our next meeting. Thank you very much, and that closes out committee of the whole. The next item we have in front of us is number 5 for planning. We've got 3 items under our planning agenda for this evening. The first 5.1 is grant extension of draft plan of subdivision, and I will pass it to Madame Duchamp.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Gagné. Whereas on August the 14th, 2018, the Council for the West Nipissing Municipality granted approval for a draft plan of subdivision for 6 lots on Laclaire Road to George and Marie Arquin. And whereas the applicants were unable to meet the 3-year condition to complete the plan of subdivision as a result of COVID and other circumstances beyond their control, and whereas the applicant surveying firm Miller and Urso Surveying has made a request seeking an extension to allow for the required work to be completed and for the subdivision to be registered by the end of 2023, be it therefore resolved that Council for the West Nipissing Municipality approves the requested extension of the approved draft plan of subdivision to Georges and Marie Arquin until December 31st, 2023, allowing the applicant subdivider time to complete the required survey work and to register the subdivision.
Any questions or comments, please? Seeing, sorry, Councillor Rivard?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I was just wondering, an extension, is there some sort of added fee? Because I wonder, is there any more administrative work there needed, or it's fairly simple? Okay, thanks.
Other questions or comments? I'd like to put it to a vote. All in favor? And Ms. Carey, thank you. Item 5.2, Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor Palamé and seconded by Councillor Cormier. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-06 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2014-45 to rezone certain lands located at 69 Bay Street from residential 3 to C1 4 general commercial exception zone 4 shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Thank you very much. Would you like to give a brief report on that?
Yes, thank you through you, Madam Mayor. The council, our planning advisory committee received an application at the January 30th meeting from a resident requesting to convert a portion of his property for commercial use. It's a startup landscaping business. This council won't remember, but the property at the rear of this particular, it's a residential, multi-residential property on Bay Street, and it would be just across from the sewage lift station, just to orient yourself where it's located. The rear of the property, there's a large vacant lot that was acquired by the former owner from the municipality. And the intention is to use that vacant space in order to store the equipment associated with the landscaping business, which would consist of lawn tractors and pickup trucks, utility trailers and whippers and the like. There would be no heavy equipment. It would be of the small, maybe a small skid steer at the largest, and the kind of equipment that you would use for landscaping. In addition, the intention is not to convert all of the space in the house, in the property. The intention is to convert a portion of one of the residential units to commercial, to allow for the administrative office. The landowner is a resident of West Nipissing, however, doesn't have space in his own home to run the office, and would be just wanting to convert maybe one room inside the residential to a commercial to allow the administration of the landscaping business. So Planning Advisory Committee did recommend the amendment, and it is being brought to council for consideration and enactment.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions or comments on the file? Councillor Tessier?
So I just have a question through you, Madam Mayor. Currently there's 3 tenants in the tree. So is there arrangements that for the tenant that's going to be removed to replace the administration office?
It is my understanding, through you, Madam Mayor, it's my understanding that that tenant has a lease which terminates this summer, and they are leaving in any event. Don't know where, but they are leaving in the summer anyways, and the intention is to renovate a portion of that apartment. The rest of the space would be re-rented once the one room was renovated for office space.
And the second question is, the property is so close to a neighboring house. Are we able to recommend that maybe a fence be built as
That is entirely, if council wishes to impose a condition for visual attenuation, that is.
Just to separate from the rest, because there's houses that are like just separated by, I don't know, 3 feet between the properties, I believe.
I would need direction. The depth of the property is kind of, it's narrow at the front and then it widens out to about 132 feet wide. And it is 66 times 3. It's about 190 feet deep. I think we would want to know what the parameters were.
So I guess the one house I'm concerned is for the rest of the building, I guess the first
So
from
you
Bay
mean,
Street.
oh, just between the 2 residences at that point?
Yeah, because the rest is all back, like it's the creek, and the other houses have like the houses opposite to the property lines, so maybe just for that first house.
That it would be up to council if they wish to impose that additional condition.
Just put that up for discussion. Do you call it visual attenuation?
Yes.
Just because the neighbors were concerned with noise and they had provided.
The intention is that the equipment will not be operated on the property. It'll just be stored there and taken to the jobs that they're doing. So it's more or less just storage.
But there'll probably be maintenance as well to keep the.
There's a fair-sized garage there, but I can certainly,
So procedurally, I think that if you're proposing an amendment to the condition, then you deal with the amendment.
Okay. So you would like to propose an amendment to add visual attenuation measures for the front portion of the property, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
so.
Is that in regards to visual attenuation?
Yes,
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
yes, Madam Mayor, just so, did the neighbor had worries about this? Did the neighbor sent a letter?
There were letters submitted with the planning application that came before the planning committee, I believe, if you're correct. And they did list potential noise as one of the concerns that they had. And the planning committee did take that into consideration at that meeting.
Yes, okay, then I would support the fence or, because those machines are gonna be running for loading and unloading and all this, so, and a little fence would be in order.
I'm sorry.
I just want clarification
Okay,
on how much fence and exactly where.
Okay.
So,
I think she's talking about this portion here, but
So
I don't
that-
know.
for clarification, and the property consists of two properties. There was a residential lot at the front and then a fair-sized vacant lot at the back. It's all one piece
So
now.
you're looking at page 67
So
on your plans there, sorry.
So you would be looking at attenuation between, I guess, for the limit of the residential portion of the property.
And we may want to consult with the owner too, possibly on the other side, because I haven't consulted, like, I don't know if they're one of them that provided.
Okay, yeah.
So so then you would be proposing a deferral. You want to consult, but your first one is proposing an amendment if you want to change the conditions that were approved at planning. So
What do you want me to do, attenuation first?
well, I think that if there's okay, so I think if the deferral would cover the attenuation if there's a lot of unsolved issues. The point I would make would be that I imagine that the Planning Advisory Committee took into consideration all aspects from a land use perspective when they made the recommendation. And so you're totally within your right to reopen it, but you're kind of reopening it in the sense that you want to do what the Planning Committee should have asked last week, in my opinion. Now, that doesn't preclude you from making changes here at all, or even deferring it and bringing it back to planning or what have you. Or if that's what you want to do, then it's a motion to defer and see what council wants to do, whether they want to defer for those reasons or bring it or deal with it. Then you would have another motion to amend to add a condition on visual attenuation. Does that help you at all? No?
Me?
Not really?
Just tell me which one to do first.
Do you want to defer this, Councillor Teissier, to inquire with both sides of the
Yeah, I
neighbors?
think defer, yes.
Okay, so there's a motion to defer, and the reason for deferring you've indicated. If there's a seconder, then you'd move, and then you'd take a vote on that.
Okay, I have a seconder for deferral. Councillor Pellerin, Okay, all in favor of deferring this item? Okay, that's defeated. Okay, so we'll deal with and entertain the amendment for condition of visual attenuation. If you look at page 67 of your package, you'll see a site map, well, not site map, overview map. And so the two parcels are outlined, which are combined into a single parcel now. I believe that Councillor Tessier's first request was to have visual attenuation on the easterly boundary of the property between that property and the other house that would face onto Bay Street. And there's a delineation there, so if that would be a clear spot. Is that your intention there, is for that first portion? Okay, does everybody understand the amendment that's being proposed? Does anybody have questions on that? Yes, Councillor Rivard?
Through you, the one question. So it's for those, what street is that? Ottawa Street? Is it those three?
No, it's
Just
the one,
little one?
yeah.
Would I be able to have a comment?
Yes, of course.
Oh, well, I would, if we were to go ahead with a visual attenuation, I believe those 4 properties most likely.
Like do the whole side.
Yeah, almost. I don't see how just the one property really, but
Okay. How do I deal with the amendment to an amendment?
Well, really, I mean, I think the issue is a general one. Before you write the amendment, maybe ask if Councillor Tessier would be amenable to have the amendment include all the way down.
Okay.
Right, so you have one amendment, just to figure out the things later.
Any other questions on an amendment for visual attenuation on the property? Yes, Councillor Pellerin?
Yes, it's just a comment. Yeah, I support this just for the simple fact that you're going for residential to commercial, just for the neighbors.
Okay, so there's an amendment on the table to add a condition of visual attenuation to the planning approval. And if there's no other questions or comments, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favor of an amendment to the planning approval, can I have a raise of hands, please? 2. Okay, so that is not, that is defeated. Okay. Do we have any other questions on the planning matter as a whole? Okay, so, sorry, Councillor Christine.
Sorry, just something came up. So under section 5.3 of the planning report, the site plan control, is there any merit in exploring that for that particular property? Because it is going from residential to, commercial, and there are some, some issues already with fencing or, appearance.
Again, that is entirely within the purview of this council. If they want to place the property under site plan control, we can still place commercial properties under site plan control, just not residential anymore.
Okay, can you explain what site plan control means and what that does to planning approval, please?
Well, site plan control is a measure by which council can regulate things that are outside of the bylaw, out of the zoning bylaw. So for example, fencing, visual attenuation, lighting, things like that. But I'm not sure, since the motion to.
I think it covered it.
Yeah, the fencing was turned down, whether that would make any difference.
Yeah. So to have a site plan control in place, you would actually want to have conditions that are attached to that site plan control. So we would have to decide what conditions those were. Visual attenuation would have been one of them that would have fallen under site plan control. So, in in planning and there's no purpose of site plan control unless you're going to actually define what the conditions of that site plan are. Is that correct?
That's correct. And typically, through you, Madam Chair, typically site plan control would be applied for, setbacks that are required that are greater than what our bylaw requires, or buffering, or like visual attenuation. There's specific kinds of lights being used. That would be the sort of thing that you would put into a site plan control agreement. And unless I had specific instructions, I would.
Okay. Does that satisfy your question?
Yep, and because I was just looking over at like the big, let's say there was visual attenuation, there's the creek going through the property too, so there may be some, if there's, oil being changed on the property or whatnot, there is a risk of that, running off, I guess, to a certain degree, but I'm just not sure.
For clarification, that's not really a creek, that's a storm drain that drains Springer Street.
Okay. Perfect.
So, any other questions or comments? Okay, so we've got a motion on the table for approval of the amending the zoning bylaw. Okay, just making sure I know what we're talking about. Would you like the motion reread for everybody, just because it's been a while? Madam Deschamps?
It is moved by Councillor Paladin and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-06 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2014-45 to rezone certain lands located at 69 Bay Street from residential 3 to C14 general commercial exception zone 4 shall come into force and take effect on the date as passed.
Okay, all those in favor? It's carried, thank you. The next item on the agenda is bylaw to assume and dedicate roads. Madam Clerk, please.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Paladin. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-07 being a bylaw to accept, assume, and dedicate lands for public highway purposes shall come into force and take effect on the date as passed. Part of the east half of Lot 3, Concession 2, Plan 36R12751 in the geographic township of Springer being part of the traveled road known as Chemin de l'Étain.
Okay, questions or comments in regards to this whole please? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor? Thank you, carried. Okay, we'll move on to section 6, correspondence and accounts. The first item 6.1 is the minutes of our meeting for January 17th, Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor Paladin and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Be it resolved that the minutes of the meeting of council held on January the 17th, 2023 be adopted as presented.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Carried. Item 6.2, received various board and committee meetings. They're all in your package there, Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Paladin. Be it resolved that the minutes of the following boards and committees be received. West Nipissing Committee of Adjustment, October 17th. West Nipissing Planning Advisory, October 17th. Oshawott Board of Management, October 19th. And West Nipissing Environmental Services Board, May 16th. AGM and regular, and October 3rd, all in 2022.
Okay. Questions or comments on any of those items? All in favor? Unanimous, carried. Thank you. And let's go. Okay, and we have no unfinished business, no notice motion, section 9, new business. 9.1, in your package, you'll find the proposed contract for our animal control services with the North Bay District Society for the, really, it's an SPCA, it's not a Humane Society? Yeah, okay, SPCA, Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor Tessier and seconded by Councillor St. Louis. Be it resolved that the Mayor and Director of Corporate Services be authorized to sign the agreement with the North Bay District Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, Humane Society for the term 2023-2027.
Okay, I'll take questions or comments on that item, so the contract is there in full. Yes, Councillor Gagne?
I'd ask at one of the meetings to get the details of the expenses, like for the past year at least, so we know what kind of expenses were billed to the municipality. Not comfortable signing a $500,000 contract for 5 years without at least last year's details to see if we're getting our money's worth or not. So I guess my question would be to essentially either defer till we get the information, then maybe go on it if possible.
Sure, I'm curious as to what you're asking, because the expenses were as per the contract last year, which are approximately $100,000, right? And for that, we have an all-inclusive service. In terms of the activity for it, yeah, I think we provided some activity report, and I received your query today. Not all of it, we can have it.
I did get some of the other answers on the activity. It's not on their expenses though, but on the activity, I did get some of the other on the activity.
Can't hear you that far away.
Oh, yeah, so I did get some of the additional answers on the activity. You know, in addition to what's in the memo, I can give you kind of a verbal on it, but it is activity based, not sort of their expenses based.
No, because it's a contract, and it's an all-inclusive contract for activity, whether there's any activity or no, or tons of activity, that's what they're charging us.
And there are some details provided in the staff report, just as far as surrender, stray, other totals, but you were also looking for fines issued, and I was just looking for your email, Councillor Gagne.
Under items through records, item R says that to submit to the municipality a quarterly at the end of March, June, September, December, written summary of the statistic pertaining to the municipality, including but not limited. And there's 8 items in there that you're supposed to supply the municipality with the details of what they've done, total of revenue from fines, total of revenue from impound. So be nice to know, like, what are they doing in regards to task? And are they having revenues that are coming back? And are we like,
I think that's a go-forward contract, right, Councillor Gagne? So I think based on conversations we had with what you wanted to have included, I think you will be receiving those reports. In the past, we had received some of that information. I'm not sure we received all of it that judiciously. Would that be a fair enough statement?
Yeah, the Humane Society used to come and sort of do a presentation to council with it. Like I said, he did provide me with most of the 2022 statistics here. But yeah, we certainly on a go forward can bring stuff to council on that quarterly basis when we receive it. So it's up to you whether you want me just to go through the verbally go through the 2022 statistics that I do have, or it's up to council.
but I'd like to see the full reports if that's possible, that they are supposed to supply to us. If I'm not mistaken, that's what item R is saying.
So if we have, like on a go for, this is a new contract, we didn't have this in the contract previously.
Oh, this is a new contract?
Yes.
Go forward.
Oh, I thought this was like the
No.
contract that we're just renewing.
No.
We put those in place as per your suggestion.
Oh, okay, okay, sorry.
Councillor
I thought it was there in the past, we're just renewing for another.
No, we're
5 years.
evolving it based on the excellent suggestions made by this present council.
I retract my comments, thank you.
Wow. Okay, other questions, Councillor
I just
Tessier?
have a quick question. Who's signing the contract? It's the mayor and?
It'll be myself and Mr. Barbeau.
Well, so yeah, the resolution says the mayor and the.
And yeah, I just wanted to clarify.
So thank you for the question, and Councillor Tacey has submitted it earlier. There's 2 conflicting documents here. We have a bylaw that for the signing of checks and the signing of contracts that has both myself and the Director of Corporate Services, Assistant CAO. And so this was and it doesn't conform to one sentence in the procurement bylaw, but it does conform to our contract signing bylaw. So we're okay that way. My recommendation is we'll move forward to bring the procurement bylaw to adjust it so that it mirrors our actual signing bylaw. So it's thank you. It's a gap that we didn't see before.
I believe also, and it's myself or Mr. Restro.
We can do that as well.
But I think that, did we not do a bylaw already?
We
So
did a
it's-
bylaw for signing, but what Councillor Tacey is indicating is that our procurement bylaw is clear, is more specific than,
That's needed.
right. So we'll fix that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions,
Yeah.
Councillor Pellerin?
Just a quick comment for that company. The day after that we heard about this, the last meeting, the day after, somebody dropped a cat in front of my place with a broken back or something. I called them up. An hour and 15 minutes, they were at my place in Verner, picked it up. So they are there.
That's great to hear. The other thing I want to mention is just in our discussion, the first time we had requested as a council for there to be an out clause, and there is in this, it is 6 months, is that correct, Mr. Barlow?
Yes.
Okay, so that part has also been addressed in the contract. Other questions or comments on that? Okay, without further ado, I will put it to a vote. All those in favor of accepting the contract? Unanimous. Thank you very much, Carrie. Okay. Item 9.2, we have the appointment to the board of the West Nipissing Power Distribution. Madam Clerk?
It is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Whereas the membership of the Board of Directors of the West Nipissing Power Distribution Limited is to include all members of council, be it therefore resolved that the mayor and all members of council be appointed to the Board of Directors for West Nipissing Power Distribution Limited for the term 2022 to 2026.
Before I put this through to a vote, would you like to say a couple of words about this, Mr.
Just
Barlow?
in governance, what this means very simply is that the West Nipissing Power Generation has a holding company. And that's under the Ontario Energy Act. And so as councillors, you actually belong to the holding company, which is the shareholder of West Nipissing Power Generation. And so it's a formality.
Okay, so any questions or comments from our council? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. And item 9.3, a support resolution for a letter regarding Bill 23. Thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Courchaine and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Whereas the Government of Ontario recently passed Bill 23, the More Homes Built Faster Act, without providing meaningful or adequate opportunity for municipalities to provide input on ways to increase the supply of housing and to improve housing affordability in Ontario, while ensuring the financial capacity of municipalities to support growth and protection of the environment. And whereas Bill 23 will have significant negative impact on green standards, environmental protection of wetlands, conservation, social housing, and other significant areas of concern. And whereas Bill 23 will negatively impact municipalities' ability to manage growth, fund essential services, and provide new infrastructure for the community, resulting in fewer affordable housing units and putting pressure on municipalities by freezing tax rate, by freezing, reducing, and exempting fees of development charges. And whereas Bill 23 will have a negative environmental impact by removing the Conservation Authority's ability to review and consult on development, impacting natural heritage and conservation. And whereas Bill 23 will result in reduced parkland for municipalities. And whereas Bill 23 will open up the Greenbelt for development, where the Greenbelt should remain an environmentally protected area so it can continue to help with flood control, provide clean air, and protect from natural disasters. And whereas a preliminary analysis of Bill 23 by the Association of Municipalities of Ontario indicates that the transfer of up to $1 billion a year in costs from private sector developers to property taxpayers without any likelihood of improved housing affordability, while also undermining environmental protection. Be it therefore resolved, the municipality of West Nipissing formally express its opposition to Bill 23 in its current form, and that this resolution be forwarded to the Premier of Ontario, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and the MPP for Timiskaming, Nipissing, and that a copy of the resolution be also sent to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario and all other municipalities.
Questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Pellerin?
Just one for Melanie. Doesn't it also remove the right for appeal? Didn't we?
It does, thank you, Mr. Pellerin, but I needed to keep the resolution succinct, so I tried to just deal with the high level impacts with regard to financial hardship for municipalities.
Okay, because that's a big thing.
But it does address that the whole thing was kind of put through without a lot of meaningful consultation. It has pages and pages of things that it does.
Councillor Rivard?
Through you, Madam Chair, it's just some things that I guess when we last talked about, I forgot to mention, but proper planning does go a long way. And I believe like to remove tools that planners use to ensure that sustainable, efficient development is never a good idea. And, you know, all the good work that all planners do. The whole idea with this is supposed to be helping lower the cost of housing, but I think it might actually be doing the complete opposite. And there's going to be some adverse effects down the line that we can't really put a cost to. So I just thought I'd mention that planning is a very important aspect of municipalities, and hopefully they listen to all of our letters.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rivard. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, please. Thank you. Carried. Okay, with that, and we are drawing close to time, but we're going to make it, so I'm really happy about that. I do just have a quick report in the fact that we've actually been 3 weeks without a meeting. Because January we had the 5 Tuesdays. So I'll just give a quick update. Councillor Tessier and I both attended ROMA, the Rural Ontario Municipal Association conference from January 22nd to 24th. There were over 1,500 delegates there, one of the largest turnouts they've had for this particular conference, and representing rural municipalities from all across Ontario. It's an opportunity to learn about the work that ROMA does as far as advocacy issues and policy issues that are important to both rural and northern communities. Broadband connectivity, access to services, and rural growth and resiliency. We both attended. We kind of tried to coordinate, so we'd attend different sessions and try to get as much information as possible. So there were a lot of different information and educational opportunities that I know I found helpful, and I believe Madame Tessier as well. These ranged from encouraging housing development, asset management, staff retention, licensing, short-term rentals. So all kinds of different topics that are of concern for municipalities. And there was an excellent keynote presentation by a gentleman named Jesse Wendt on the current state of truth and reconciliation. For me, one of the highlights personally is I met several women mayors from across Northern Ontario, including Cheryl Fort from Hornepayne, Beverly Nantel from Dubreuilville, and Melanie Pilon from Wawa. We had a great conversation, a great dinner together, and it was really inspiring for me to just kind of connect with other women in Northern Ontario municipalities who are passionate about the same kinds of things that I am. And they were so intelligent, so hardworking, and so warm and embracing with me. And I just wanted to kind of give a shout out because it was kind of a really important part of the weekend for me. We've talked about issues in regards specifically to women in Northern Ontario, and I know that I'll be connecting with them and hopefully some other women mayors as well from around the north to talk about more of those things. Also had the opportunity to meet, and I'm sure you did, several mayors, councillors, senior staff from a lot of our neighboring municipalities, including Marks Day, St. Charles, Temagami, Temiskaming Shores, Mattawa, and French River. Over the next couple of weeks, from Roma back home, there are some awesome community events. Every time I open the internet, I see new things that are going on in the next couple of weeks, and so there's lots to do around our community. So this weekend, from Thursday until Sunday, is the Field Carnival, and it looks like there are a lot of volunteers in Field who have put a lot of work in to create a really great weekend for families. So please get up and visit. I will be going Saturday, I hope, maybe Friday, but probably Saturday. And then February 10th, which is this weekend, free skate in Sturgeon Falls. February 11th, free skating in Verner. And February 11th is also the Roadhouse Concert and Fundraiser in support of the food bank at the Marcel Noel Hall. Tickets for that are available at Stop and Shop and Don's Butcher Shop. For Family Day weekend, which is just one more weekend away, our community service department has organized a lot of fun-free events for the weekend from February 18th to 20th. And you can check out the municipal website for details on that. And the other big news is we just got word today from our community services department that the Sturgeon Falls Arena has officially been nominated for the Craft Hockeyville contest by a resident in our community. It's a great opportunity for the municipality as the grand prize is $250,000 in upgrades for the arena and the opportunity to host an NHL preseason game. You can find information on how to support this initiative on the municipal website and on our social media, including Facebook and Instagram. And with that, I wish you all a very good night, and Madam Clerk will read the closing statements.
It is moved by Councillor Restool and seconded by Councillor Teissier. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-08, being a bylaw of the West Nipissing Municipality to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on the 7th of February 2023, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Carried.
It is moved by Councillor Teissier and seconded by Councillor Crushane. It resolved that the meeting of council held on February the 7th, 2023 be adjourned.
Questions, comments? In favor, please? Carried. Thank you very much.